Ever feel like no matter how much you study, you just don't remember enough? Today, we're diving into powerful research-backed strategies to boost your memory and learning efficiency. Reading over your notes has only a very limited benefit. A lot of students take it to the next stage, where they highlight the notes. Well, the bad news there is that research has shown that reading and highlighting is of very limited value. To understand why some study methods work better than others, we need to look at how memory storage works. According to Atkinson and Schifrin's 1968 multi-store model of memory, information passes through 3 stages: sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. Here's an example. Your grandmother, who is not yet convinced about the cashless society, gives you her bank card and asks you to withdraw some money for her at the ATM down the road. She tells you that the PIN code is 1792. Off you go. But by the time you reach the front door, you realize that you have forgotten the PIN. This is because it has not passed from sensory memory into short-term memory. So, feeling rather sheepish, you go back again. This time, Granny tells you to repeat the number over and over as you go to the ATM. So, off you go again. 1792, 1792, 1792. And by the time you get to the ATM, you still remember the number. That's because by repeating it, you've put it into short-term memory. You get the cash, and your granny is very grateful. A week later, you visit her again, and again she asks you to draw money for her. Thing is, now you have forgotten the number again. And this is because you have not continued to repeat the number since last time. This repeating is called rehearsal. So the number has not entered your long-term memory. So Granny has to remind you again. This illustration shows that to truly learn something, you need to transfer information into long-term storage. And we do that with scientifically proven techniques. Let's begin with something called spaced repetition. Spaced repetition is actually the key to retention. Hermann Ebbinghaus in 1885, long time ago, discovered the forgetting curve, showing how we rapidly lose information unless we review it at spaced intervals. By revisiting material at gradually increasing intervals, we strengthen neural connections and make recall easier. And this is why cramming at the last minute doesn't work very well. So, how do you know how often to revisit the study material? I use a spreadsheet that looks like this. Let's say you learn about Bowlby's theory of monotropic attachment on Monday, the 10th of March. You record this on the calendar, and within 24 hours, you make a set of flashcards. I'll come to those in a minute. At the same time, you place a note to revise Bowlby on the following day. And then you leave a space of 3 days before you revise that topic again. After that, you can increase the spacing. Research shows that actively recalling information rather than just rereading significantly improves memory. Since you're going to write your exams by hand, make handwritten flashcards. Put questions on one side and the answers on the other. Read the questions and answer them out loud, because verbalizing information helps with memory recall. Try to answer the questions even if you don't know them, because even doing that strengthens memory. If you do know the answer, put the card at the bottom of the pack, and if you don't know it, put it a few cards down in the pack so that it comes up again quite quickly. I mentioned verbalization a moment ago. It's another powerful memory hack. You know, teachers who teach the same lesson in multiple classes know all about this one. Once they've taught a lesson to 3 classes, they can do the 4th one without even looking at their notes because they know the topic so well. It's verbalization that does the trick. You see, When you verbalize concepts, you're forced to organize your thoughts, and that improves comprehension and retention. One student I knew used to line up her teddy bear collection and teach them. You can also put your phone camera on and record your lesson, playing it back afterwards. Here's another tip. Researchers Cornell and Bjork in 2008 found that if you switch between different subjects, it improves learning and problem-solving skills. So you study psychology for a while, and then you switch to one of your other subjects, and then back to psychology, or to another subject altogether. And apparently this technique helps your brain recognize patterns and apply knowledge flexibly. But of course, in order to do it properly, you have to plan your studying. I want to go back for a moment to something that happens even before you revise, and that's note-taking. Studies show that active note-taking, like using the Cornell method, enhances understanding and retention. Mueller and Oppenheimer's research paper entitled "The Pen is Mightier Than the Keyboard: Advantages of Longhand over Laptop Note-Taking," done in 2014, showed that handwritten notes were more beneficial than notes taken on a laptop. And specifically, their research showed that when a laptop's used to take notes, it may even impair learning because of shallower processing. Let's have a look at the Cornell note-taking system. To begin with, you divide your page into sections with headings, as shown. The notes section is where you write down what the teacher says and what's on the board. But you don't need to write down every word. With practice, you can learn to capture both the gist of what's being said and the important details. Of course, if you're learning from a video or text, it's easier because you can go at your own pace. The cues section is where you can add questions that will help you remember or organize the material. Also, that's where you jot down reminders about further research that you might need to do on that section. Now, traditionally, the cue column is used after you take your notes, but many people find it useful to use it at the same time. One of the best things about using Cornell notes is that it keeps your brain active, which encourages memory retention. And then at the end, you summarize the notes on that page at the bottom. Now, summarizing makes you go from details to the big picture, and it forces you to analyze and evaluate what you're learning, which in turn strengthens understanding and memory. Now you know the science-backed techniques to learn smarter. Use spaced repetition, active note-making, retrieval practice, and verbalization to supercharge your memory. Best wishes for your exams.